Welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? I am Karen E. Osborne, author of Getting It Right and the upcoming women's fiction murder mystery Tangled Lies, which launches on July 22nd. And I'm thrilled to introduce you to today's guest, whose book launches today. And this is, so we're excited about you having an opportunity to meet John Hazen, for him to tell you about his journey and his writing life and about this book that is now out there in the world and you can get right away. So, hey, John.
Pleasure to meet you, Karen. Thank you for having me on. I think it's so valuable to everybody to have forums like this, and I'm so glad that you take the time to bring authors on. Actually,
Thank you. It's been very enjoyable. It's been so much fun meeting so many cool and lovely and wonderful writers and finding out about so many great books. So you are the author, you have a whole series, the Vega Thriller series. Are there 3 books in that?
3 books in that.
3 books in that. And then a departure, his new book, The Correction. So he's going to tell us about the Vega Thriller series. He's going to tell us about his new book, The Correction. But we're going to start with some reading recommendations. So what can you recommend to our audience?
Actually, lately I've been reading a fair number of books or soon-to-be books by our fellow Black Rose writer authors. I think one of my problems is I can't say no. So if someone reached out and said, would you mind beta reading this for me? And I said, okay, sure. I'd love to say, no, I'm actually, reading something else, but I don't like to turn people down. So, and the result has been actually very rewarding because a lot of great writers out there that, we have in our, with our publisher. And so I've been reading a whole range of things. Latest one I read was it's called Steve Rockfish, PI, The Pine Barren Strategy by Ken Harris, and it's a private investigator, kind of in the Jim Rockford type, and it's just very very good page turner, and so I really enjoyed it. But then I've actually read a couple by people you've interviewed recently, Mary Ellen Bramwell. I've read a lot of her books, and she just has a way of kind of capturing the relationships between people, and kind of a lot of the like her latest one, Apple Doesn't Fall Far, is very good because it really captures a mother-son dynamic that and she's very good. And another, I just saw your recent interview with blanking now, Jeannie.
Oh, Jean Roberts?
Roberts, yeah.
Jeannie Roberts, yes.
Yeah. And I just read her, it's called The Frowning Madonna. And that's, it's a very, interesting take on time travel. And I have a couple time travel books out myself. And the Correction is actually one of those. And I have 7 books in all. The time Correction will be my 7th. And, I did another one, Dear Dad, that I wanted to, have a way of kind of contrasting 2 different wars. So I looked at the Vietnam War, which is very unpopular, politically and in the public, and the Civil War. And so I said, why not have the same character do a time travel? He ends up getting injured in Vietnam, and then when he wakes up, he finds himself with General Grant's troops in Tennessee. And
Wow.
And it was just, just an idea. So kind of, that way you can kind of compare the wars and compare, how he feels about them, and so that, that was actually the first book that I.
What's the name of that one?
Dear Dad, and it's and I was able to kind of draw on my experiences actually growing up in a small town, and I've kind of run the gamut. I, grew up in a small town, like 2,000 people in Massachusetts. And then I lived in the New York metropolitan area for a while. So you got millions of people. And, now I'm down in Florida and it's kind of a
Middle.
middle range. Yeah. So, yeah. But,
So
but
tell us about the correction.
the correction is, it's a time travel of sorts. And I kind of, in the back of my mind, saying, people always have things that they wish they had done or a mistake they made in their past that they wish they could go back and change. You know, um, ill-advised word to a loved one that results in estrangement. And I'm saying, what if I provided a mechanism that people could go back? And the correction is about a man who's got a power, an ability to let people go back. And it's a power that he's inherited over the past 800 years. So the correction kind of goes through, talks about his story and how, he's able to do corrections. And let me just offer you a quick example of one of his. He, he, he always says that the two places that you can, get people who need corrections, he found are churches and bars. That you get a lot of people who kind of wish for better things, and those are the two places. And he goes into a church and there's a young woman there in a wheelchair, and she just looks very bitter. And he gets to know her and finds out that she's like 30 years old, and when she was a senior in high school, she was riding off to a party. It was an icy night. She went off the road and ended up paralyzed. So she's bitter, and she had like offers to college. And he gets her to wish that she had never gone out that night. Puts his hand on her shoulder, and she goes back and she stayed home that night and didn't go out. And the next time he sees her, he stays in the present. The next time he sees her, she's got a family. She's a veterinarian with her husband, and just very happy. So that's one of the good stories. But as you can imagine, when you go back and correct things, who knows what's going to happen? Because he has the ability to make the correction of that one instance where you wish you did something else, but he can't control what happens after that, or what happens to other people that as a result of your changed life. So it's got the potential for things going awry as as that.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. I love it already.
And it's a power that's been around for 800 years. So I offer kind of go back to 13th century England where it all started, and kind of and then kind of work up through the centuries, and coming across the boat to America, and and then and so another one is in the Civil War era where this man helps a slave family, and so it kind of works its way up through the and then it comes get to his personal story as well, and it's got a bunch of twists and turns with him, and how corrections almost are the ruin of him, but then and
Mm,
up to him. So yeah, it was a fun thing to write because I could.
yeah, it just sounds so fascinating. And but it's a great thing to think about in one's own life,
Yeah, all the time, because I figure everybody has something. You think back to if only I had dot dot.
if only I hadn't.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I kind of figured that maybe there should be an audience of that, of people who think there were things in my life that I would have done different if I had the chance. And this said,
Yeah.
okay, you have, in this book, people have a chance to do that. And
That just sounds so interesting. And are you working on something new? Because you write thrillers, you write historical novels, you write time travel.
yeah.
What are you working on now?
Well, I'm kind of conceptualizing what the next, Vega, there's, 3 books right now in the Vega thriller series. First one is Fava, which to blow my own horn, bestthrillers.com called one of the top FBI books of all time, alongside of James Patterson and David Baldacci and people like that. So my head a little swelled from
Yeah.
and then and these stories involve a New York City reporter, a a young uh, well, she starts off young, and about that, that's named Francine Vega, and she kind of starts off as a reporter who's just doing puff pieces, like the original book is she's interviewing people after a big mega jackpot is being it's going to be announced that night in the lottery, and that so those are the type pieces she wants, but she wants more, and then it kind of evolves and into a bigger thing, and she hooks up with a FBI agent, and they uh, end up it's kind of a plot that kind of really ends up world shattering if they don't thwart what's happening. So that was Fob, and then the second one was Zyklon, which is a book about it's actually about presidential politics, and but it's got a tie back to World War II, and that's where the title comes, Zyklon, the gas that was used, and she kind of uncovers bit by bit using her powers as an investigative journalist to uncover all these different things that you know are interconnected, and I've just always had a thing for good journalism and good investigative journalism.
Mm-hmm.
They, really do the work and really, uncover things, and that's what I tried to portray her as. Yeah, and then the third book, which was just released in December, is called Beyond Revelation, and this one actually kind of did something interesting where, it's the same character, but I brought back the character from Dear Dad in, without the time travel portion,
Mm-hmm.
where Francine, um, a friend disappears in the small town up in Massachusetts, which was the same town I used for Dear Dad, which was actually based in my hometown. And she goes up, and she's like a kind of a fish out of water. This street savvy New York you know reporter is all of a sudden thrust into small town politics, and
Mm.
and this ties to a religious cult that has established a retreat there, and she's finding out more and more about them, and about and using her contacts, and kind of finding out what's happening, and it like the other books of Mushroom. So that's what I'm working on now, is kind of the next book. I'm
The
trying to,
next book in that series.
and in this, I'm trying to keep it both personal to her, but also to have um, global impact. Kind of, if she doesn't act, then something big could happen, both for the country and
Yeah, yeah.
the world. So
Oh, that sounds awesome. And listen, look at how many books you've written. You are like Grisham and
oh,
Baldacci and
I, yeah, I only wish that I had their success, but I enjoy writing them, and that's kind of the main reason I write. And it's interesting because the Vega thriller series did. I had no idea that I was going to be writing a thriller series. I wrote the one book, but then at the end, I kind of tell people that Francine just wouldn't go away.
yes.
She had more of a story to tell, so uh, I really you know kind of said, okay, I got to give into her. When you character
Let
characters,
our characters
And you gotta give them an outlet.
Give
So
them an outlet. If our viewers and listeners wanted to find you, how would they find you? What is your best place for them to go and find out more about your books? And
Facebook, I post fairly often on my John Hazen author page. Um,
okay, John Hazen author page.
right, yeah, it's whatever it is.
That sounds great.
Facebook, John Hazen author. And I'm somewhat active on Twitter, but mostly Facebook. And then my pages are all I do have an author page on Amazon.
Yes, so they can find you on Amazon as well.
Yeah,
Well, this has been such a fun conversation from my fellow. We ended up in two places at the same
yeah,
time,
all together. Yeah,
Florida and the Bronx at different times in our lives. And I hope that all of you have enjoyed this conversation. I hope that you will go out and buy John's books and that you will come back again for the next episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Thanks so much, John.
thank you very much. Take care.